Hi everyone, sorry it's been a while since I've done a video. I have been so busy, you have no idea. But today I would like to discuss can men and women be friends, like true platonic friends, and if they have a spouse. And typically I answer that question with a resounding no, but I'm going to preface this by saying it depends. And what it depends on is if the man or woman knew that friend before marriage. It depends on if that man or woman can put their spouse ahead of that friend. It gets tricky when a spouse doesn't want to let a friend go and they put that friend above the person that they married. That's where confusion comes into play, because people don't want to put their spouse ahead of that friend. And in a case like that, my thing would be is then you should have married that man or that woman if they're that much more important than the person that you actually did marry. And I want to go off on a tangent a little bit. Does anyone remember the Real Housewives of Atlanta when Kenya Moore told Phaedra that her husband can talk to anybody he wants? And I remember thinking to myself, she's going to eat those words one day. I said, because I thought to myself, she's going to be a married woman, and she's going to, do whatever it takes to protect her husband and her family. And sure enough, years later, she's a married woman, and what is she doing? She's protecting her husband and her family. And that's why, I've said in a previous video, should you take advice from single women? And that's a topic that comes up all the time online. And the reason why, I often say no is because a lot of times they don't know until they walk in those shoes, in a wife's shoes. So you don't know what you would say or do once you become a wife. I knew Kenya was wrong when she said that to Phaedra. And I don't even like Phaedra. I like Kenya. But, I often called her out on her bull crap online. But this isn't about the Real Housewives of Atlanta or anything. Going back to the topic, can a married man be friends with a single woman, for example? Can a married woman be friends with a single man? And again, it goes back to, it really depends. I don't really recommend it. Like if you have to, like going on like a lunch date with a person. If your husband or wife has an issue with it, then I feel you shouldn't do it. If you want to do it anyway against your husband or your wife, then that might be a red flag. If you have to sneak around your husband or your wife, that's a definite red flag. So I think bottom line is, if you can separate that friendship from your spouse says, you know what, I'm not comfortable with you hanging with that person, and you sever ties, and you can sever ties, okay. But if you can't sever ties and you're emotionally bound around that person, red flag, and you and your spouse, need to discuss that before it gets out of hand. And usually when I answer this question online, I often say, affairs don't happen in the bedroom. It happens from something as innocent as a friendship. Next thing you know, you're sharing personal tidbits about, your marital life with somebody who it shouldn't even be discussed with them, especially the opposite sex. And people who just don't have anything to do with your relationship, you should not be, sharing that. You don't know what that other person might have going on in their mind. You know, we've heard, and let me use another of those reality shows. Now you might say, oh, those are all scripted and blah, blah, blah. And yes, they are all scripted. But some of this stuff is real life. Some of the things that happen in those shows are real life. And because look at Cecil and Dr. Simone and Married to Medicine. Now, they had a family friend, and it came out later that that family friend had designs on Cecil. Dr. Simone was spending a lot of time at work. She was, they were spending time in separate houses, and that friend took